I hadn't thought that I was going to be a suspect, but then the lady that I talked to at the fire department was like, well, I can't tell you much because it's currently being investigated for arson. And then as I'm talking to her and I'm like, I just need the fire report so I can send it to the insurance company. And she's like, well, I can let you know that we found it's a suspected arson and that we think it was a Molotov cocktail. And just to let you know, we have recovered parts of the bottle with fingerprints on it, and it's been sent to, the lab for testing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, she's obviously hinting that I should be afraid. Welcome back to the Hustle on Purpose podcast. I'm your host, GT Ikard. Today we have a very special guest, Matt Barger. How are you doing today, Matt?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for coming out and agreeing to do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to dive into it today. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about what you do, how you got here.
Oh, man. So I've been doing this for about 15 years now. Started out, the very beginning is I went to the University of Central Arkansas. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Had an insurance department. Got into the insurance and risk management courses. Went through all that. Graduated. Started doing personal insurance. Home, auto, umbrella, boats, etc. Got bored with that because it was the same thing over and over. Name, date of birth, driver's license, over and over and over. Really got interested in business insurance. Property investors, that is business insurance because that's a business to them. And I got interested in it because it is more complicated. No one is the same. Person comes to you with a homeowner's policy. Homeowner's policy is a homeowner's policy. There's some variation, but for you, for example, like on a landlord, it may be occupied, it may be vacant. You may be about to do renovation work on it. So it's just, I enjoy doing it for the differences.
Right.
It's, no one thing's the same. So it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, you get some of that variance in your day.
Yeah.
Some variety is the spice of life, like they say.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So you went to UCA, got a degree in insurance, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Did personal and like you said, there's really no kind of personal flair to that personal insurance. It's like it's pretty cut and dry. But now you deal with all kinds of crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No.
You'll have me call you and tell you I bought a commercial gynecology clinic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And crazy stuff.
Stuff like that. Farms,
Yeah.
distressed farms, manufacturers, nursing
Right.
homes. I mean, just anything really.
Yeah. Every day is different. So tell us a little bit about, I think, so most of our listeners will be business owners or investors or want to be investors. What is the benefit of calling someone like you as opposed to reaching out to their local, like State Farm agent, Farm Bureau agent, Traveler's agent, something like that?
The biggest difference is mainly just being able to kind of do the shopping for you. And you don't have to pay somebody like us any more than you did your local State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, whatever. You go to them, they're going to get you one product. You come to us, we can look throughout the entire marketplace and see what product benefits you the most. Not only from a coverage standpoint, but also, price-wise, because I know margins are super tight with property investors. It is what it is. So we just kind of, take that off the property investor's plate, shop it for them. And then especially if it is a very specific scenario with what they have going on with this property, a State Farm or a Allstate or a Farmers may not be able to do what you're specifically needing because all they hear is rental property. Okay, they've got one product for it.
Right.
Well, we hear rental property and we say, what about this, 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 and this? Mm-hmm. So we tailor it to the individual, what they need.
I feel like I experienced the best of both worlds finding you guys, because I was in a situation where when I first started building my real estate portfolio, I worked for a fairly large investment company. And in that, their property management had about 7,000 single family homes. And within that management company, they were able to negotiate really good group rate stuff basically for that entire portfolio. So if you wanted to have your stuff insured under their group rate, it's kind of like getting healthcare at your job, right? Like you have the benefit of leveraging the power of the group as a whole to get a better group rate. And whenever I left there and I left that management company, I needed to move my portfolio to someone else. I lost that benefit and started shopping around for insurance. And I found it really difficult because you talk to some of these, your go-to large insurance companies. And like you said, they pigeonhole you into this niche of like rental property, that asset qualifies for this rental policy, whatever. And my price that I had always kind of factored it as this fixed cost. All of a sudden that fixed cost is now astronomically more expensive. And I consider myself very fortunate to have found you. You were recommended to me. And through that property and casualty stuff being what you do every day, and y'all were able to find me incredible rates. I saved a ton of money, have great coverage. And on top of that, I'm able to talk to you directly or to Shelby. Big shout out to Shelby. She's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So I get that personalized, tailored attention. I mean, we've gotten it down now where like I'll be closing on a property and I'll email y'all and have my quote that day, and like we're set to go. Because a lot of times the need for that quick process has been great as well. So having that where it's just, we're just adding that to your monthly thing and it's all taken care of is outstanding. And it's not like trying to get a hold of one of those huge insurance firms where I have to go through this rigmarole of like proving who I am and like finding these account numbers and whatever. It's like I email you and Shelby will email me right back like, got you taken care of, and here's what we need from you, or blah, blah, blah. And it's just great to have been on this side of experiencing, not only is it good coverage, not only is it less expensive, but on top of that, I also feel like I get great customer service from you guys.
Yeah, good. So I'm glad. Shelby, she is amazing.
She's great.
She knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of, you talk about those group rates, and that's a big thing in the property investor world right now with regards to insurances, because we have access to those group rates, if you want to call them that. We call them master policies, and everyone has its own rating rules and manual rules. So, one zip code under master policy A may have an entirely different rate than master policy B. Okay. But then we're also looking through the rest of the master policies as well.
Because they have like different risk profiles that they allow in the group. That's probably terrible verbiage. But.
No. So it all goes back to how the master policy is set up by the actuary. If they determine, zip code 72221 is, higher risk from crime, wind, fire, they take all those variables into place.
Right.
One actuary, a person or a group of people may look at that as more hazardous or, risky than someone else. And so every master policy could just be different. And, and we don't always have to go to a master policy. Sometimes that's not the way to go with it.
Right.
We just don't know until we really look at it.
This episode of Hustle on Purpose is brought to you by Arkansas Real Estate Buyers. If you have a problematic piece of real estate, we would love to help you. go to the description, click on the link, schedule a free consultation with me personally, and we'll get you set up. Now let's get back to the show. It seems like people go through an evolution. It's similar to how people do it with their property management. It's like you get a house and you manage it yourself. You grow that to where you've got 3 houses and you manage it yourself. It gets to a breaking point where you hire a management company, right? And then eventually, if you grow enough, you get to a point where you're bring that management in-house and you manage everything yourself. Again, with insurance and the investors that I talk to and deal with, it seems to be kind of the same way. Like you get that first rental property and you call your State Farm, Farm Bureau, whatever agent, and you get that one property insured, and maybe you do that on the first handful. Then you get to a point where you realize like, well, they're just pigeonholing me in their standard policy, and it's getting to the point where it's like it's hindering the growth of my business and my profitability. And then the economics of it kind of force your hand to call somebody like you. And I just didn't realize that was a thing until I kind of got into it. And I wish I had known sooner the benefits of meeting someone that does what you do and building that relationship and starting it quickly. Because I could have saved myself some pain and heartache and headaches along the way if I had done it sooner.
Yeah. I mean, those are great products. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, if you have your home and auto insurance with, one of the storefront agencies like that, it's a great product. It's, you're not hurting yourself on that end. But there are times where you can get that same product at a better rate.
Right.
And it'll hold steady longer.
Yeah.
Just with the way rates are moving now, it's hard to keep up.
And at the beginning, when you have 1 or 2 rent houses, it is likely worth the extra premium for the additional coverage because you can't weather as much risk. But for me personally, getting to the point where it's like I need more of like catastrophic coverage, because I can weathering a storm sounds like a terrible turn of phrase, but I just need more of that catastrophic risk coverage because the portfolio's gotten to a size now where it can handle smaller incidents happening.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish, and every insurance agent would say the same, but we wish everybody would look at their insurance specifically when it comes to homeowners or rental properties or even businesses. It's not a maintenance policy. It's really there for the catastrophic events. It's not there if your refrigerator goes out.
Right.
You just need to get a new refrigerator. You don't need to file that because you're gonna pay for that next year, because the insurance rates are already going to go up, and because you had that, now yours is going to go up that much more. And that's where a lot of people have a disconnect with insurance, is they view it as a maintenance policy.
Yeah, we just call those things the joys of home ownership.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So how often would you say your typical person needs to be shopping around their insurance? Because rates, you've mentioned a couple times, rates going
it
all
varies.
over the place, and
it really varies, especially in the different insurance sectors. It really differs. Home and auto insurance every 3 years minimum. You just have to do it with the way rates are with every insurance carrier there is. And people make complaints, I've never made a claim with them. That's fine. They're still going to raise your rate because insurance is a pool of money.
Right.
And the people that are pulling that money together are trying to make money. But because they have a contract between you, they're responsible for filling their end of the bargain if something catastrophic happens. And when that rate goes up, we have to shop it. But 3 years later, we may be right back with that same company because their rates may be better than everybody else because now everybody else has gone up and matched that price point.
Right.
It's just a big circle with insurance carriers. Who's the best now may not be the best in 3 years, but
right.
Like you said a minute ago, if you were paying those prices earlier on, you would have saved money throughout that time span. So, over the course of 3 years, you save all this money. Well, what if you switch back and find a different carrier that was charging what you were paying 3 years before? Well, then you're still saving that same amount of money. You just switch things around a little bit. And I just want to get your perspective on it. So shopping around your personal home and auto every 3 years, is there any downside to switching every 3 years? Because I know, and this might just be totally false, and maybe is there any, I'm trying to think of how to phrase it, like loyalty, brand loyalty? Like let's say you're trying to get your roof replaced on your house because you have suspected hail damage. Really, you just want it replaced because it is old and looks bad. Yeah.
But do you think you're more likely to get that roof replaced and paid for by insurance if you've had them for 10 years than if you've had them for 2 years? Or you don't think it plays into it at all?
It will go back to, it'll go to what the adjuster finds.
Right.
Period. If you've had a policy for 10 years and you switch all of a sudden, and say within 2 years you file a roof claim, within that past 2 years, if you've had a major hail event or strong winds, they're probably going to pay it. I'm not saying they will,
right?
But that weather event happened while they were on the policy. With regards to loyalty, me personally and everything I see with a carrier, it sounds bad, but they're not loyal to you. You don't have to be loyal to them. It's what's in your best interest. Because it's your contract, it's your policy. You can cancel it whenever you want. Some policies, it's not smart to do that, but for the most part, absolutely do what's best for you. But when it does come time to file a claim, if you had policy A for 10 years and you had a major weather event during that time and then you switched and there hasn't been anything, they may not pay it because nothing's happened while they've been on it. So
in my experience, it just obviously no insurance company would come out and say that they do that. They would never come out and say, well, you haven't been with us for long enough, so we're not going to pay for your roof replacement.
Yeah, no.
But it does seem to have some kind of correlation. Like in real estate, like we'll tell people, I've seen this happen before where it's like when you're buying a house, you try and negotiate the seller to get their homeowner's insurance to agree to pay for a new roof before you take it over as a buyer. Not only because it benefits you because the house you're buying comes with a brand new roof, but because insurance companies, and this may just be superstitious, insurance companies are more likely to pay for that roof claim for that previous owner than they are for a brand new owner.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And then it also benefits the buyer,
right,
on their insurance because you come to an insurance company with a new roof, anything new, and they're like, better rate because we know we're probably not going to have to pay a roof claim
on it. Yeah. So that's a little tidbit for people out there. Like if you're about to sell your house, see if your insurance company will pay for a new roof.
When we sold our house, my wife and I, we sold our house, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. That's what the buyers asked us. And so we filed it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it had hail damage. It was legit.
Right.
It was taken care of by insurance. We paid our deductible and moved on. And
there you go.
Got the sale done.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I was just interested in your take on that because I didn't know if there was any truth behind it. Because it's one of those things, it's like it's hard to really verify because no insurance company is going to say.
No, they're not going to say it, but then also a lot of adjusters now are third party.
Right.
They don't work for the insurance company. Mm-hmm. They're not getting paid based on what that insurance company says, or, having them cut checks or not. Now, if you're just approving claims left and right without having done due diligence of inspecting and really providing sufficient evidence that it should be approved.
Right.
Yeah, that third party company, your boss may get mad at you because he's like, we get paid by them.
Right.
And that's how I pay you, but you're just approving everything without doing your job.
Yeah. They're not incentivized directly to pay or not pay your claim. But one of their KPIs, their key performance indicators, is 100% like how many claims they approve.
Oh, they audit it. They'll audit adjusters, third-party adjusting agencies, just like they do insurance agencies.
Yeah.
They audit us as well.
Right.
There's several times where we've had a claim and the carrier or the adjuster will ask for a copy of the signed application when we originally wrote the policy. We provide it, but we do that, and then carriers also ask, and it's also a law. We have to maintain signed documentation on file for any new business. I can't remember. It's maybe 5 years or so before it can be removed. But since everything's digital now, there's a digital copy of everything with every person's file at all times. So
yeah, that third party, even though they are a third party adjuster, they're not technically employed by the insurance company. Like, they know where their bread is buttered, so to speak.
Yeah.
So,
and they know if they're going to tell, and they're not the ultimate decision maker on that. They're just the field adjuster. They take all their evidence and send it to the desk adjuster, and they're the ones that sign off on it or approve or decline.
Right. Yeah, I owned a roofing business for like 5 years. So like I have my own biases towards insurance companies and adjusters. And
oh yeah, no, and it goes the other way around too. Adjusters have their own biases towards roofing companies because just like any business, there's shady people, shady businesses, but you and I are probably more familiar with contractors being shady because we see them all the time,
right?
Somebody that doesn't deal with them all that often, they would never know there's shady roofers or plumbers, or electricians, because they don't deal with them.
Right. Yeah. I would always try to meet the adjuster there, and it's a very divisive thing. An adjuster is either like excited to see you there because like, I'd have my ladder set up. I'd go ahead and mark some test squares on the roof, like out of the way, where they could just trying to make their life easier, but also like stay out of their way and let them do their job.
Yeah.
And they would either like hate that you were there or be truly like thrilled that you're there to help. But it's usually either or, and you know very quickly which one you've got.
Yeah. No, you never know with an adjuster, but what the downside of it where people can get upset with claims is there's not that many adjusters, and they're so underpaid and overworked, and there's a reason for that. And it kind of goes back to your, is it an unspoken thing? Do insurance companies want to pay? Is it, within the adjuster's best interest? With the number of claims that happen, it would benefit everybody if there were more adjusters. Because I know I have a good friend. He's an adjuster here in Arkansas, and he has hail claims from last week that he's not going to be able to get to until next week, or just to really look at anything.
Right.
Because they have so much on their plate. Because there's people that actually have real claims going on, like catastrophe claims. Right. But then you also have these little maintenance claims that should it have been filed? No. But because it's in the system and it's claimed, you gotta investigate and look at it. And it just slows everything down. So
Yeah, especially, I mean, so when you have a catastrophic tornado roll through like we did in Little Rock, I mean, I just can't imagine. I mean, I know they send in a flood of out-of-state adjusters, catastrophe team adjusters to come in and handle stuff like that. But I can't imagine how busy you've been, how busy everyone that makes that insurance ecosystem work. I mean, it's just been daunting, I'm sure.
Yeah. No, it's I know my team. We were taking calls till about 12 o'clock that night when the tornado came through, just giving people different information, taking information down, which house it was. We really didn't even bother asking what the damage was. We just, in our reports, put tornado because it's obvious. Taking information, giving them contacts, people like you, for housing, construction companies, restoration companies.
Just like water mitigation.
Yes. Yeah. Oh gosh. But I mean, I think we've had, because that was on March 31st, I think.
Yeah.
It was the end of March. And we've already had within the last 2 weeks, I mean, we've had some carriers just cut out some big checks for people already.
Which is great. That's why, I mean, this is one of those situations where it's exactly why you have it.
Yeah. And the downside of it is, these customers are getting the checks, but just because you have the check doesn't mean everything's immediately fixed. It's,
right.
You may have a check with a house that's got 3 walls standing.
Right.
Now the real fun begins, trying to get all the pieces together and who's going to build it, who's going to fix it. But the insurance part can, they can recommend like preferred vendors, preferred contractors that they've dealt with in the past that they know they've dealt with in the past that they know are going to provide invoices that match up with what the market kind of is. Just that kind of speeds up the process. But if people have somebody they want to use, then by all means use them. So
it's, the check certainly helps.
Yeah.
It's certainly better than not having a check. But I mean, these people that their houses were leveled by a tornado, that process is tough. There's so many decisions that have to be made that you can't really be prepared for when something like that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I move my family somewhere else? Do we buy a new house? Do we rebuild that house? I'm sure these insurance checks come with, some of that is allocated towards like a place to live for a short period of time while you figure out what your next move is.
Yeah.
Is that usually like 6 months?
So they'll split that actually, because each part to your policy is with most policies, they're broken into different sections. So like if you had your home, and this is whether it's a rental property or
right.
personal residence, if it's insured for $100,000 and it's totaled and you have $1,000 deductible, they're going to give you a $99,000 check for the house. But what about where you're staying? Well, submit receipts for that. They'll cut you checks for that. What about my personal property? Try and get together a list the best you can of what you had, and they'll cut you a check for that too. So, there's going to be multiple checks that are cut from an insurance company in the event it's a total loss, especially for a business owner, because y'all don't have the where am I going to stay problem. You have the loss of rent problem.
Right.
What they'll ask is, submit your last 6 months rent roll.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll start paying that back.
And that really just brings us back to your policy origination, like having these catastrophic things in mind when you get your policy, for like making sure you have stuff like rent protection.
Yes.
What your deductible is.
Yeah.
All of those factors that kind of going into figuring out your policy and what the premium is for that policy.
Yeah. Everybody looks at it differently. Some people look at getting the insurance as, I just have to do it because the bank tells me. Mm-hmm. This is for property investors. I have to do it because the bank tells me. So it's going to cover the loan amount. Do you want loss of rents? No. I just want all they truly care about is the loan amount.
Mm-hmm.
And, you talk about getting one check and being done. You can write the policy to where it's one check and you're done. I mean,
right.
You can do it that way. Does it save you money throughout the course of the year, collecting rent, paying expenses? Yeah, it absolutely does. If you have a catastrophic event happen like this, is that check exactly what you wanted? Did you want the money that covers that loan amount?
Right.
And because insurance is there to put you back where you were before, as if nothing happened. So if your loan was 100 and the policy is 100,000, that's it. You don't personally get any. This is going to go to the bank.
Right. Yeah. Directly.
Yeah.
Do not pass go.
Yeah. It has your name on the check.
It
has you or your business name on the check, and it'll have and bank. They both got to sign. That money's the bank's.
Mm-hmm.
So, we see that. I have seen that. A lot of investors lately, since they have seen this, have made significant adjustments.
Yeah.
They've thought about it. They've rethought how they originally bought that policy. Their mindset has changed. I do want loss of rents, or I do want replacement cost coverage. I would want to rebuild. And then there's some people that, is a cash buy. And, when that check comes, it really is like, they can do what they want with it, clear the lot, sell it as is. But for homeowners is where it's really going to be interesting to see, because especially the areas that were affected, all those houses were bought like in the last 10 years, like personal residences. Those interest rates were low. So $200,000 even 2 years ago at a 3% interest rate on 30, that $200,000 is not going to get you the same house now, because interest, 7.5?
That's so true. Yeah.
So
prime's almost 8. And they're having a meeting today. And I think they're going to do it at least another 0.25% raise.
Yeah. And so that's the area that, I haven't heard many people talk about is.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that haven't thought about that so like property investors that, buy property cash, it's not that big a deal. You don't have to pay a bank back. You can take that cash and just put in another one if you want.
Yeah.
But homeowners is who it's going to impact the most, like primary, their primary residents. Those are the people it's going to impact the most.
Yeah.
So that's the unfortunate part. And it even goes for their cars. There are a lot of cars that were damaged during all that. If they were making payments on that car and they bought it a couple years back, interest rates are interest rates. Now, if it's new, now you've got an 8% interest rate to play with. And that's going to be hard to do for a lot of people.
Right. When you were talking about the policy origination stuff and loss of rents and stuff like that, it just made me remember. It's another area y'all were super helpful with for me, because y'all could help me weigh the cost of like with rent coverage and without it. And in most cases, it was just like, it was like a couple of extra dollars a month, and you could have like rent coverage. It's like, dude, yeah, that's great.
Yep.
And it's another benefit that I've experienced working with you guys is that, there's been houses where I needed it insured for a certain amount. And it's like, well, you can insure it. I didn't realize there was those coverage amount. You'll have a nice word for it that I don't, but it was like, well, you can insure it for this much, and it's like a price break. Like if you wanted to insure for 75, but if you insure for 80,000, it's like cheaper.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of times they'll have, and this is just every carrier's different, but, a lot of carriers want to insure at a per square foot amount to qualify for replacement costs, actual cash value.
Right.
And the difference between the two is huge. You either, do you want a partial loss to be depreciated, or do you want it back the way it was? And, it can be as little as, you say, I want it insured for 101. You say, well, if you do it for 102, you get replacement cost and it's 30 cents more a month. You might as well do it.
Yeah.
So,
but that's stuff like I would have known, like,
yeah.
as the buyer of the insurance, like I don't know those things without you telling me that.
Yeah.
So it's nice when you get a text. It's like, hey, for 30 cents more a month, there's this drastic benefit you would have like not.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not trying to, some insurance agents will kind of get lumped into, they're trying to upsell. Just like if you're at the drive-thru, they're like, do you want a large for a quarter more?
Right.
Like, I don't care about that because you have to think about it. We're commission based too. How much more do you really think we get for a couple dollars more a month? We don't. It's truly, can we just give you this so that way if something does happen, you're not mad at me?
Right.
We have this for
I like
you.
having the option.
Yeah.
I've never felt like it was an upsell. I've been like, oh, great. Like that's like a drastic savings for the value.
Yeah.
Because it's not every time that I get a message like that. It's just like, hey, on this one, like we happen to notice, you insured it for whatever. You can get this much more coverage for like a fraction if you just bump it up or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is just something you just don't. You could say that it's an upsell, but like Travelers is not going to do that. They're not going to tell you, well, hey, like do it for $5,000 more coverage for 10 cents.
See,
or I haven't had that happen.
Yeah. And
maybe they do.
I mean, we represent Travelers.
Yeah.
I've had nothing but great experiences with them, especially during this whole tornado.
Well, I'm not bad mouthing.
Yeah, no. Theirs are just a little bit different. We plug in property information and it'll spit out what they want to insure it for. Mm-hmm. Period. End of story. And it's going to be replacement cost. It's going to be not necessary. We can modify. Agents can modify a policy to turn, a Camry into a Cadillac. We can do that with all the bells and whistles, but it doesn't always make sense with the individual.
Right.
It's
going to be an expensive policy.
Not everybody needs golf cart coverage. They don't need it on their homeowners, but
right. Some people do.
Yeah. But, we tailor it as good as we can. Some carriers you have, way more ability. They give the agent a lot more power to mold and shape the policy how they see fit.
Right. Yeah. Which is good.
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions to ask people is if they have any horror stories. I thought you would probably have several. I have one that includes you that I can share if you want me to while you're thinking of something.
Yeah, go for it. Are we talking horse like with my kids or are you talking about like work?
Yeah, it can be your kids.
Oh.
But
There's too many.
I was thinking more along the lines of just like crazy clients or crazy, things you've seen happen in the property and casualty insurance world. Mm. But I mean, I'll start with mine so you can think of something.
All right.
So mine was the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and I was out of town. I was in Branson, Missouri with my family, and I got a call from my property management company at the time that I had a house fire, and it was at a house that we had been trying to evict people, and that it had caught on fire, and then it had subsequently caught the house that I happen to own next door on fire as well. And thankfully, no one was hurt. But here we are the Saturday after Thanksgiving. I'm out of town, and I have to call Matt and tell him that I had one fire, but two separate properties burn. And then it was like, you answered my phone call on Saturday and helped me out and talked me through it. And I called to get the fire report, and the people, I made sure to mention that I was out of town because I was like, golly, like I hadn't thought that I was going to be a suspect, but then the lady that I talked to at the fire department was like, well, I can't tell you much because it's currently being investigated for arson. And then as I'm talking to her and I'm like, I just need the fire report so I can send it to the insurance company. And she's like, well, I can let you know that we found it's a suspected arson and that we think it was a Molotov cocktail. And just to let you know, we have recovered parts of the bottle with fingerprints on it, and it's been sent to, the lab for testing.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, she's obviously hinting that I should be afraid.
Yes.
That like these are going to be my fingerprints on this bottle.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, that's great. Like, I hope you catch the person because they burnt 2 of my houses down.
Yeah.
Can I please get that report whenever you have it so I can get it to the insurance company?
Yeah.
So that's been, I think, my craziest insurance story so far, and I hope that it stays that way. I had a Molotov cocktail thrown into a house, and it caught 2 of my houses on fire.
Yeah. No, those fire departments, that's when a fire happens like that, that is their crime scene, like equivalent for police. Like, and they will always their immediate thing is investigate for arson every single time there's fire. So that what they did, they weren't trying to single you out. It's just if there's a fire, they're like, don't tell anybody anything. We're going to go over this place in a lot of detail.
Yeah. And I'm glad they did. And everything worked out well there. We moved the nice rent-paying tenants into another vacant house, and we're able to help them out with some of their loss of personal property and all of that. That worked out well. And now I'm just remembering, so that happened, and then within the same year, I had another house burned down, and that's the one where I was like, now they're really gonna think. I was like, I'm gonna call Matt and tell him this. They're gonna drop me from the insurance. Like, who on earth has 3 properties catch on fire in a year and isn't guilty of something? And like, thankfully, not thankfully, I guess there had been like a serial arsonist, and like, I don't know if they ever caught the guy.
Yeah.
But, or girl. Anyways, the other one was 2 days after we had been through a long eviction process with these people, and they had gone to their final court hearing, and the judge was like, yes, like, you have to leave. The Pulaski County Sheriff showed up like the next day to make sure they were evicted, and the house had burned down. It's like this timing of it was a little suspicious.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But what's crazy is like no one had called. I don't think anyone had called the fire department had gone out. Anyways, I'm getting down a rabbit hole, but those are my insurance horror stories.
Yeah.
The fires.
Yeah, fires are the worst.
Yeah.
It's always stressful to hear right at the beginning because you're like, was anybody in the house?
Right.
What time did this happen?
Yeah, that's your first question. I get the calls, and I'm always like, just please tell me no one was hurt.
Yes.
Like,
yeah, because that's a heavy phone call to take when there's bodily injury.
Right.
Whether it's minor from the initial story or potentially someone died or something. It's,
If you're going to have a
stressful.
house fire, having somebody throw a Molotov cocktail in a vacant house is by far and away is far away from the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah,
if you got to have a fire.
Yeah.
What about you? Anything crazy?
I have a recent one, like within the last 2, and this all stems from the tornado. We had an adjuster accidentally look at the wrong house. He went out and inspected the wrong house and sent a denial of coverage letter because it didn't reach the deductible, the damage to the house. And the customer was like, do they know where this house was? And I said, we're going to have to really look into this. I'm just half the house is gone.
I'm just imagining having your house completely leveled and they say the amount doesn't meet the deductible and you're like,
yeah. So that was just an error, and that was an odd one. That wasn't really the craziest. Probably the weirdest one I've had happen is because of tenants. We had a customer that was trying to get some tenants out of a house, and they hadn't been able to because they had stopped paying rent for however many months or whatever. And anyways, the tenant finally left, and they went in there. and the tenant had taken out all the kitchen cabinets, all the kitchen appliances, all the flooring out of the kitchen, had remodeled the back patio because he was going to turn the house, and this is on a street with other houses, he was going to turn the house into a restaurant. And so he had
Which you can't do.
Yeah, he tried to turn the kitchen into a commercial kitchen. You know, he had taken up all the flooring because he was going to put those rubber mats like you see in a normal kitchen to prevent someone slipping. The back patio was going to be an outdoor dining area. And
wow.
And you know, he tried to file a claim on it, and you know, again, tenant damages are not covered.
Right. Unless they start a fire or
a fire can, I've seen it both ways. If you can catch the person, you know, I've seen it paid. But anytime someone has deliberately done damage to your property, deliberately, I've seen a lot of times where they won't pay it, and that's more of a civil matter. That's a lawsuit.
Gotcha. I was about to say, how do you protect yourself from something like that? And it's like, there's no protection. There's just after the fact
Yeah. But I mean, in those scenarios, in the world of insurance, with how many different policies there are certain circumstances where one could pay and one couldn't. It's just, it all boils down to the scenario. But like that, the guy trying to turn a house into a kitchen restaurant, no, absolutely not. That's not going to be covered. You can try, but nothing will come of it.
Right. I'm just like, I'm thinking through that thought process of like, if you have the money and the means to build a commercial kitchen and to the financial undertaking of starting a restaurant, do it in your own house.
Or pay rent with that money.
Right.
He hadn't been paying rent, but instead
of
been doing that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
of course. Yeah. Man.
I mean, I have a lot of odd ones, but you know, I've got to the point now where it's almost, you know, out of sight, out of mind. Like I don't even remember half. If I really sat for a while, I could remember most of them, but you see so many. I mean, you know, people call me and, you know, it'll be red flags going off in my mind. Like, yeah, this is fraud. Once we're off this call, I'm never going to call you back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I have those. I have those every once in a while. So
every once in a while. Yeah. It's how it goes with me in the stories too. It's like, I usually ask somebody about their horror stories, and while they're saying it, I'm like, oh man, yeah, I've had something similar happen.
Yeah. I imagine I imagine property investors have the most horror stories because of tenants and things that happen.
Yeah.
Because y'all don't know what they're doing in that house because they're the ones living there as if it's their own. You don't know what they're doing.
Well, we have as a landlord, I always just think of it as like, we have a very simple agreement in place. You pay rent on time every month, and I try to make sure you have a decent place to live and that maintenance is taken care of when you need it taken care of. And it's like, in my idealistic world that I try to live in, it's like, that's so easy, right? Mm-hmm. But then it's like, it seems like more times than not, it just doesn't work out that way.
Yeah.
And now you're sitting here sharing this story about this kitchen getting torn out and somebody wanting to start a restaurant. I can't help but sit here and think, is one of my residents out there tearing out one of my kitchens right now and has dreams of like starting a back patio restaurant in their neighborhood?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean,
hope not.
We'll have, you know, I've had customers call, you know, what was it? One recently, it was affected by the tornado, but there was damage to the house that was unrelated to the tornado. And it was just something the tenant had neglected to ever tell the landlord about. And the problem just kept building and building and building.
Yeah.
You know, like a leaky pipe like a leaky pipe in a wall. Like, just tell them. They'll get it fit.
Please let me know.
They don't want it to damage more than just that little small section of drywall.
Right. Yeah, being a landlord is riding that seesaw of like, I hope nobody calls me with maintenance.
Yep.
But you also hope they call you with maintenance when like it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't
Yeah.
do it. I would never sleep.
Oh, dude, it's fun.
No.
You would love it.
No.
That's why you have insurance.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that's a whole different level of stress though. Those are two very different types of stress.
Yeah. You learn to deal with it, I guess.
Yeah.
You got to sleep. I think your body, like the main reason I sleep is like your body just forces you to do it at a certain point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That or my kids. One
Right.
or two.
Yeah, your kids. Yeah, same here. Goodness. Well, what did we not cover? I feel like we did a pretty good job. What else would a real estate investor need to know about insurance besides reaching out to you and JTS Financial?
It varies with every person's different. Some people have different ideas in their mind of what the insurance is going to be like, what it should cost, what coverage it should provide. That's the biggest thing we deal with is, ask questions. Like, ask me all the questions you got. I'll nerd out on insurance with you all day if you want. Tell me what you want to know.
Right.
Would this be covered? Would this be covered? I get asked if bed bugs are covered sometimes.
Are bed bugs covered?
Depends on the policy. I mean, there's a couple that do, and a lot don't. But it really boils down to what level of risk are you comfortable with,
right?
And how can I get you a product that matches your level of comfortability, but also to where you can make money because you have a business too. You're trying to turn a profit on this.
Yeah.
If more investors would just, ask more questions and really get it to fit the mold of what, their risk tolerance is, they wouldn't see insurance as just this, just as another expense or another line item that the bank made me get, or, I got to get it because I read on the forum that they said you should have insurance because of this.
Right.
There's several investors from out of state. They don't even know that we have bad hail. Like, ask questions. We have hail all the time.
We get hail all the time.
Our insurance premiums are absolutely going to look different than what you see in Oregon or Washington. We see things all the time that are just different from everybody else. So
right.
Questions. Ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's great advice. Like, and everybody's investment strategy is different. Like I've said before on here, like I know hundreds of real estate investors. They all do it a different way. And it's like, you can tailor your insurance to fit that strategy, but you got to ask questions and talk to somebody like you that can guide them through, people that need a lower deductible and can pay a higher premium, or a lower premium and take a higher deductible. I mean, you can just go through and change all these factors and really tailor it to fit people's needs. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, great. What else?
I don't know. When are all these people getting back that you got parked outside?
At the end of their business day. It's Wednesday today, so they'll probably work normal hours. On Friday, they get off early, but
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming. This was great. Hopefully it was helpful for people out there to learn a little bit about insurance. And it's not the most fun thing to talk about for some people, but it's such a necessary part of your business.
It is.
For most people's business. So it's worth spending a little bit of time listening to us talk about it, or talking to your own insurance professional about how to tailor your policies to your needs and all that. So really appreciate you coming out, and thank you all for watching. This has been the Hustle on Purpose podcast, where we try to bring you the knowledge and encouragement you need to go out there and crush your goals and provide for yourself, your business, your family, and your community. Check us out on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. Share this with a friend that may need this knowledge. We look forward to seeing you next time. Hustle on Purpose.